Hey everyone, it's Eric Thor here, and today we're talking about worries. Worries, these annoying, intrusive thoughts that can appear telling us about the worst things that could happen. Worrying often focuses on what could happen in the future. It's anxious thoughts about the future specifically. Sometimes worries can also be about things that might have happened in the past, but most of the time our worries tend to gravitate to what could go wrong in a future relationship, at our job, in our family, and with our own health and well being. When we worry, it can feel almost as if a negative outcome is guaranteed and sometimes unstoppable or impreventable. Yeah, no matter what you do, it can feel as if something is going to go wrong. And no matter how much we think about what to do and how to prevent it, it can feel at times as if there are just so many things that could go wrong that no matter what we do, it's pointless to even try to do anything to stop it. So, worries can make a person act more cautious, less confident in themselves, less confident in their own future. Sometimes these thoughts can make everyday experiences like travel and connections less enjoyable. After all, if you have to spend so much time trying to hold on to something, that might make you want to have those things even less. I don't want to have a relationship, you might say, because being in a relationship is so exhausting because there are so many things to worry about in a relationship that I'm happier on my own. And in fact, there are many people that go about their life organizing their life to avoid worries. Yes, there are people that choose to take the easy route in every situation, choosing the easiest job, the simplest way to live, and the most unproblematic way to live, which is usually to live alone, right? Because the more people, the more challenges you invite into your life, the more things that could potentially go wrong. On the other hand, such a life can often feel very empty and very dissatisfying. It can even feel boring, right? Because you might spend most of your time living through other people, through movies, TV shows, and through social media. You might avoid having the experiences that would give you joy and happiness, but you avoid them because you associate the act of having these experiences with worrying, with stress, and with having to constantly think about what goes wrong. Yeah, we can't talk about the topic of worrying without talking about the topic of having attachments. The more attachments we invite into our life, the more things we could potentially worry about. But it's not just about how many attachments we have, but also how deep those attachments go. The attachment to your child or to a job or to a person might feel very, very strong and very intense. You might not have a lot of things that you feel attached to, but there are certain things in your life that matter to you and they matter a lot, right? So imagine, for example, you only have one close friend. You don't really have any other friends. This kind of deep attachment can make you worry more because you might worry more about that person. Things that could go wrong, potential for reaction. And often the less things we have, the more we tend to worry about them losing them, right? So a person that has a lot of different attachments to a lot of different people and a lot of different things tends to not worry or fret much about losing one thing because after all, yeah, I can lose one thing, but I'll still have all these other things and those things will still bring me a lot of joy and happiness, and so this loss won't wear me down much. But say you lose a loved one, say you start having conflicts in a deep and close relationship. This can intensify worries, especially if you only have this one person, if that person is your entire or the majority of your life and the things that you care about, right? So it's not just about how many attachments we have, but how few we have, right? And how deep those few attachments are. Losing a bad friend can feel worse than losing a good friend if that bad friend is the only friend you've got, right? That's the problem with worries, right? Worries often get us to act more conservatively. It makes us feel less open to change, and it makes us hold on and cling tighter to the few things that we have, right? So not only does a person that worries a lot tend to avoid making new friendships and starting up new relationships and uh, doing new things, but also they tend to overvalue the few things that they have, especially even if those things are not very healthy or not very good for you, right? So a feeling like comfort eating, or a feeling like talking to a friend that never really listens to you or never really seems to support you, uh, that thing might just feel so important, right? So it's not having attachments that causes us to worry. So the question must be another. Why do we worry? Where do these worries come from? There are people that have many attachments and don't seem to care about them. And there are people that have very few attachments but care a lot about those few attachments, right? There are people that get attached to material things, and there are people that don't feel any form of connection to material things. And hey, if they lose their wallet, even if it had a lot of money in it, it's okay, they'll make new money. So there is also the belief that even if you lose things, you'll be able to find your way back, right? So even if you do get hurt or rejected in a relationship, as long as you're authentic, you might have this supernatural belief that the universe will provide new things, new opportunities for you. Yeah, you might lose a job, but you'll find another one. Yeah, you might have a negative encounter with a stranger, but you'll meet other strangers that will have more positive and beneficial experiences, right? So when we think about worries, then we got to think about whether we feel protected by the universe. Like, if you think about it, do you feel protected, supported, and loved by the universe? And I don't mean necessarily God or some metaphysical experience. I mean by our family, by our social security, by our personal competences, and our feeling of inner confidence, right? Because you can find that if you have a lot of inner confidence, right, you have a lot of skills, you have a lot of things that you value about yourself, a lot of things that you know are important. You know that you're a lovable person, and so you know that ultimately, you are going to use those lovable qualities, and those lovable qualities will help you make it in the world. It also comes down to generally your outlook on the universe. If you think the universe is a cold and harsh place, that people in general are mean and callous, and that people don't care about you and things like that, that can also weigh on and cause you to worry more, because after all, you have to spend more time protecting yourself from this hostile space, right? So it's important to think about it. Are you a worrier, or have you just fallen on hard times? In the Big Five, we talk about neuroticism, so a person's tendency to worry. But just because you check out, strongly agree on these statements that I generally worry a lot, I tend to have a negative outlook on life, I tend to assume the worst is going to happen. Even if you agree with those statements, that might not be because you're a worrier. It might just be that you've fallen on hard times. If you think back through your life, you recognize that a few years ago you were very positive and you had very high positive faith in the world. And that might have been because at that time in your life you were supported, you had good things happen to you, and you had generally a good experience of life. But life changes and goes through ebbs and flows, and sometimes you might be in a lower flow. You might have experienced recent loss of a job, of a house, of a partner, a family member, and that might have caused you to feel a little bit more negative about life. So I think we can't just talk about a person's tendency towards neuroticism, but we also must factor in a person's relative challenges and struggles in life, right? It's natural to feel more stress, to feel more worry, if you are putting yourself out there in life, right? So if you are actively chasing a new job, starting a new relationship, or doing something that's genuinely scary, that might factor into worrying more, but that might not just make you a worrier. It might actually be a sign that you're brave, right? So if you have found that you're in a situation where you're doing these things, you're putting yourself out there, and you're worrying because it's scary to be out there, right? Pat yourself on the shoulder and tell yourself, I'm doing a good job, and that these thoughts are natural when you're starting up new things, because change can be scary. And I think anyone that's been in a new relationship knows a new relationship can also be scary, right? So all these things can factor into and feel very normal, and I think should not be things we judge ourselves harshly for, right? And so if you think about what you can do in order to worry less about life, I'd say one thing you can do is to spend more time actively touching yourself, right? You can, for example, rub your palms together. These kind of self-soothing behaviors, they can send you positive signals that you are safe, you're okay, you're in a good space, and that everything is okay. And if you can find these kind of experiences, if you can provide for yourself, if you can create for yourself a comfortable, safe surrounding, if you can create a positive environment, a beautiful environment, all those things will factor into your feeling of being safe. In fact, looking around you and studying your room right now, just look at everything and see where it is and think about how it makes you feel. You have everything in you to be safe and happy. Worrying is not a personality type, it's just a state of mind. And in this moment, you can, for the second, find peace of mind. If only for this second. And then maybe the next one, and the next one, and the next one.